What the Rothschilds built was more than a banking dynasty, it was a system, a framework that outlived them. From the gold vaults of 19th century Europe to the digital ledgers of today, their influence became invisible because it became normal. Every modern institution that controls money, from the Bank of England to the Federal Reserve, runs on principles the Rothschilds perfected 2 centuries ago. This isn't a conspiracy, it's a design. A design so successful that most of the world's wealth now flows through a system that bears their fingerprint, even if their name is nowhere on it. It began in a narrow street in Frankfurt, where a man named Meyer Amschel Rothschild built more than a fortune. He built a system, a formula made of trust, information, and perfect timing. What started as a family business would grow into the invisible architecture that powers global finance today. In this story, we will uncover how the Rothschilds designed that blueprint and how it still shapes the world. We will see how their methods became the foundation of central banking, how their family network evolved into institutions that now move trillions, how their money financed wars, peace and empires alike, how myth and reality merged into a symbol of financial power that never truly disappeared. But before all that, it begins with a simple truth. Power follows information. Meyer Amschel Rothschild understood that gold alone was limited, but knowledge was infinite. He trained his 5 sons to turn information into opportunity. One went to London, one to Paris, one to Vienna, one to Naples, and one stayed in Frankfurt. They built a network that spanned Europe. And that was faster than couriers, smarter than monarchs, and more reliable than any government treasury. While nations waited for the outcome of wars, the Rothschilds already knew who had won. While kingdoms borrowed in desperation, the Rothschilds lent with precision. They did not rule empires, yet empires moved when they did. Their credit became the bloodstream of European finance. Over time, governments began copying their system, transforming it into what we now call central banking. The Rothschilds had done more than lend money. They had built the foundation for how the modern world manages trust. When nations learned to print money, they were only perfecting the system the Rothschilds had already written. The Rothschild family did not disappear. They expanded. When nations built central banks, the family adapted, positioning themselves inside the very systems they had inspired. They no longer needed thrones or crowns. Their power lived inside the architecture of finance itself. If you're still watching, take a second to like the video and subscribe. It helps us reach more people who want to understand how history still shapes the world today. In London, Nathan Rothschild became the quiet force behind the Bank of England. During the Napoleonic Wars, he used a network of couriers to deliver news of victory before anyone else knew the outcome. When the market panicked, believing Britain had lost, Nathan bought government bonds for a fraction of their value. Hours later, when the truth reached the city, those bonds soared. It was one of the boldest trades in history, and it made him the most powerful banker in Europe. His brothers in Paris, Vienna, Naples, and Frankfurt followed the same strategy. They financed railways, telegraph lines, and governments rebuilding after war. They mastered the balance between risk and influence. When kings needed peace, they turned to the Rothschilds. When generals needed guns, they did the same. But something was changing. By the late 1800s, their private empire had become the model for an entirely new kind of institution. The Rothschilds had proven that wealth could govern more effectively than politics. Central banks were born from that idea. Their methods shaped the bond markets that funded the Bank of England. Their influence stretched into France's national bank and into the creation of Austria's credit system. Even as the United States founded the Federal Reserve, many of its architects studied the same European systems the Rothschilds had once directed. By the 20th century, the family helped fund global reconstruction through complex partnerships that reached into the foundations of the IMF and the BIS. Their agents sat on boards, their capital backed currencies, and their relationships guided the flow of post-war credit. They no longer appeared in headlines, but their signature was hidden in the ledgers of the world. Their family offices became trusts, their private banks merged with global ones, and yet the logic never changed. Control the credit, and you control the future. Central banking was no longer just policy, it was dynasty made permanent, a system where faith in money replaced faith in monarchs. They became the machine itself. the Rothschild name became more than a family. By the mid-1800s, their reach stretched from the ports of Alexandria to the railways of Paris and the ministries of London. They no longer simply observed history, they financed it. When the French dreamed of connecting the Mediterranean to the Red Sea, it was the Rothschilds who turned the Suez Canal from an idea into an engineering triumph. Their capital flowed through the deserts of Egypt, funding ships, labour and steel. When the British government later bought the canal shares, it was Nathan Rothschild's London bank that arranged the deal. The family earned a fortune. Across Europe, their financing built the railways that stitched empires together. The French lines, the Austrian networks, even the great industrial arteries of Germany bore their financial imprint. Each mile of track was both commerce and control, each interest payment a thread in a web that connected capital to power. Then came the new century, and with it, total war. World War I demanded financing on a scale no empire had ever imagined. Governments printed propaganda, but the Rothschilds printed confidence. Through bonds and international loans, they kept armies supplied and economies breathing. They advised treasuries, stabilized collapsing currencies, and managed gold reserves when the very idea of value began to crumble. After the war, they financed reconstruction through long-term credit, rebuilding the same nations that had once borrowed to destroy each other. It was not cynicism. It was business, built on understanding that peace and war both required the same foundation: liquidity. Their philosophy remained constant. Do not own the territory, own the obligation, control the debt, and you shape the direction of recovery. This principle became the silent rule of modern geopolitics. Nations borrowed, built, and rebuilt, always within the orbit of the same financial gravity. The irony was impossible to ignore. The family that helped end wars also helped begin the next ones. They financed the builders and the breakers, understanding that both served the same cycle. By the 21st century, the name Rothschild carried a weight far beyond reality. It had become a symbol, a myth that blurred fact and fiction. Conspiracy theories claimed the family controlled governments, printed money at will, even orchestrated world events. Their name appeared in whispered rumours more often than in business reports. The truth was quieter and far more interesting. The family no longer operated as a single empire. Their power had evolved, scattered into private holdings, investment firms, and philanthropic trusts. The London and Paris branches still existed, but they were now part of a vast network of institutional finance. The structure was different, yet the principles remained unchanged. Their influence moved through the same channels they once created: international banking, asset management, energy, and global infrastructure. A Rothschild might sit on a corporate board in Switzerland, advise a government in Africa, or direct a foundation funding environmental projects. Their empire no longer needed a single vault or signature. It functioned through systems they had designed generations ago. As their visible wealth diversified, their symbolic power only grew. The name Rothschild came to represent the idea of ultimate financial control, the invisible hand that guided capitalism itself. It was no longer about the family, but about what the family represented: trust as currency, discretion as armour, and continuity as influence. And yet, that was their greatest triumph. The Rothschilds built a system so efficient, so deeply embedded in the global economy, that it could thrive without them. The modern world runs on their principles: credit, confidence, and control through structure, not personality. The myth outgrew the reality. The family became the mirror in which the world sees its own dependence on money and trust. From the moment Mayer Amschel Rothschild began trading coins in Frankfurt, his true currency was never gold. It was trust. Every note, every loan, every bond depended on a single fragile idea. That belief became the foundation of modern economics. Money itself is only paper and pixels until someone trusts that it holds value. Every transaction, every market, every economy is built on that invisible agreement. When trust holds, nations rise. When it breaks, empires fall. The Rothschilds understood this long before economists wrote about it. They turned faith into finance, transforming human confidence into measurable power. Their networks, their timing, their secrecy, all of it existed to protect that one precious resource: credibility. Without it, wealth means nothing. With it, even nothing can become wealth. Today, the same principle governs the entire world. Central banks issue currency backed by promises, not metal. Cryptocurrencies build belief through code and community. Corporations trade not only in products but in perception. The systems have changed, but the psychology remains identical. Trust is the only asset that never loses relevance. It is a moral paradox. The same force that binds society together also tempts those who learn how to control it. To manufacture confidence is to shape the future. To lose it is to watch everything crumble. The Rothschilds did not invent that truth. They mastered it. And in mastering it, they revealed both the brilliance and the danger of human faith in power. Money is belief made visible. It reflects who we trust and what we fear. Every number on a screen is a story of confidence written by those who understand that value is not found in vaults but in minds. If this gave you a new perspective, don't just scroll away, hit subscribe. This is Economic Chronicles, where history exposes the present and the future is written in the lessons we refuse to learn.